Simon, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Tina?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So to just
Good.
kind of jump right into it, I'm curious, what excites you about how much the action film genre has changed or maybe stayed the same since Con Air?
I don't know. I think it's got more like Con Air now. I think that was to me, Con Air was quite comedic. It was like outlandish, outrageous, operatic, larger than life. I guess it was kind of funny. There was a lot of humor in it, a lot of funny lines, but I guess everyone in the story took it seriously. I think what has happened over the years is it's become so endemic trying to get the humor in the action film that now the audience is part of the joke, I suppose, and the actors almost like turning to camera and wink. I mean, they actually are in some films turning to the audience and winking and talking to the audience directly. So it's become so self-aware that be surprised if we start pulling back from that because everything has to change, and that's where we are at the moment.
So is the comedy angle, is that what interested you in joining directing Old Guy?
It's partly, I mean, it's the character. I think everybody are interested in people who with a sense of humor. It's very boring being with someone who has no sense of humor. And if you're going to sit through a film, it helps if to like the characters if they have some sort of sense of humor. So without being a comedy, I mean, life is not a comedy, but we meet funny people all the time, and you're more attracted to those people. So I was attracted by a real character, Danny Dolinsky, that Christoph plays, as being a flawed, deeply flawed character with like all sorts of problems and issues. But he's funny and warm and living life to the full. And it's a sort of a guilty pleasure because he's probably behaving like most older men would like to behave, but don't. Yeah, and they shouldn't really because he drinks and womanizes and goes clubbing all night and has he's eats the worst food and but he's a very nice guy. He has good friends and everybody loves him, and Lucy Liu plays this very good old friend of his, so he gets along with women and on all levels, and he's a very appealing character. So that's what I was attracted to. And then the other two characters with him are great counterforts. Cooper Hoffman plays the Gen Z guy, kid who comes up against him, who's so you got this Boomer versus Gen Z dynamic, and that's fun to watch because the audience is either one or the other or somewhere in between,
Mhm.
and they like watching the sparring between these two guys, and then Lucy Liu is sort of the referee in between who's trying to make them get along and make one understand the other. I mean, they're both pretty frustrating characters, and so she has to try and explain to both of them what's wrong with them
Mhm.
and why they should you know try and learn something from the other person. So it's that triangle of those three characters that attracted me. And yes, there's action and there's shootouts and they're hitmen and they go on missions, but really it's about the dynamic between the three of them. And they could be anything. They could be plumbers or electricians or door-to-door salesmen. They just happen to be hitmen, but
Mhm.
their problems and their issues are more to do with all of it, everybody's normal day-to-day issues of age and isolation and family and relationships and things like that. So it's a real story, and it's like it's a real hitman. It's not like someone that's a machine
Mhm.
with no friends. And I've done that. I did the mechanic with Jason Statham, and he's the exact opposite. He was an absolute machine with no responsibilities, no friends, absolutely mechanical, and that's fun to watch as well. But I just wanted to do something that was the antithesis of that, and someone who's not at the peak of his game, who's not got all his facilities that he used to have, and he doesn't like it. He's moaning about it.
Yeah. It's very interesting. The two characters, the Kristoffs and Coopers, they look at hitman, being a hitman as two different things. One of them, Cooper sees as an art form, and then you have Kristoff character who sees it as taking out the trash, a little more mechanical. But do you feel like as a filmmaker, you have to find the real answer as something in between? Like it has to be violent, but it also has to be interesting and compelling to watch.
You mean the actual hits themselves? What?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm always a little bit dubious about relishing part of it. I think I focus on the intelligent part of it. How are they going to get in, and then the emotional part of it of how do they do this and live with it.
Hmm.
And the discussion is, Cooper's character is like he appears to have no emotion about it, and he's like, had horrendous childhood and has shut off all his emotions. And Christoph, I think has a moral compass, and he wouldn't, and he doesn't in the movie. He chooses not to shoot certain people. He would only do it because he thinks these people are in some way deserving, or certainly it's not a great loss to the world of the people he's doing. So he does have a moral compass about it. So I also, depending what the character is, if I did another film that was about someone without any morals, that would be sort of interesting to analyze as well. But in this case, it's it's analyzing more. Again, it's not really about his job. It's not about
Hmm.
what he does as a job. It's about the fact that he can't do it anymore, is what the story's about, and the fact the other guy sees it as his only reason for living. It's an art form, it's his, because he has nothing else in his life.
Hmm.
Which Christoph's character has so much more in his life that the hitman part is a small part because he's actually more interested in living life to the full. So that's why it's like, oh, I just do this. It's a day to day 9 to 5 job, even though it's like 2 days a month. Um, so it was Cooper is like, this is all I've got in my whole world. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna consider it the zenith of what I do. So that's how I approach it in a film. It's just what you're being true to each character's motivation. Really, it's nothing to do with me. I mean, I don't think people should be hitmen. I think it's a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
But being confronted with two people who are, my job is to present their two arguments of why and how they do it, and open up the discussion.
Mhm. And speaking of the two dual worlds, you have Christoph's character in very like classic traditional hitman-esque clothes, and then Cooper's got the pearl necklace, the nail polish. Can you talk a little bit about the creating those two dual identities that have to exist in the same world and like the conversations you had with the costume or production designers?
Yeah, I mean, costume was really important, and also props and things, because to me, Christoph was stuck in the 90s. That's why he's still behaving the way he did when he was in the 90s, when he was at his peak. And I know, and we've all seen people, dress in a certain way when they get to a certain age, and you go, "Oh, I know what decade you were at your peak because you're still wearing, you still love that haircut, you still love that way of dressing." And that's what I did with him, and even down to his car. He's still driving the car he drove in the 90s, and doesn't understand, a Tesla or anything like that. So, and he's still wearing the same leather jacket he had and the same haircut. And Cooper's character is total Gen Z. He's like, I don't want to, identify with any, you know, um, particular group. Although he ends up, being a perfectly typical Gen Z. He doesn't want to, be any particular gender, and but he's part of the same sort of tribe, really. And who knows, in 30 years time, maybe he would still be wearing that stuff, because that's when he was at his peak. He painting his nails and wearing the orange Crocs and things. But that's the fun part. Okay, let's dress these two people to help identify who they are. And so there's definitely those conversations where it's also, someone, I think, for to bounce off. Christoph can do all those great looks when he looks Cooper up and down, like, what the hell are you wearing? And what it's like. Um, so it's fun to have those two cultures clash.
And my last question for you is very quick. What is something about your generation that you don't understand and something about the young generation that you don't understand?
Oh God, that's a huge question. That would take a
Give it
while.
just
That would be
a
taking
pop
a while to
culture. Yeah.
research. Jesus. Well, my generation to understand. God, I don't know. That's a pretty deep. I could write I'd have to write a thesis on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a quick one. You should have sent me that earlier so I could think about it. I'm sure there's a million things I don't understand about my generation. Um, and what about that Gen Z generation? I don't know. I'm trying to think. No, I mean, I don't know. I try to think that I'm completely open-minded to all generations, and that there's nothing I don't understand. I mean, I think that's the what is it? The smugness and um, conceit that you think I understand everything, all generations. I'm a filmmaker,
Yeah.
but I probably don't. And I'll think of something brilliant when you've gone.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. This is really lovely, and congratulations on the film.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too.